Thank you for joining us in This Week in Turkey. I am Murat Tursan. We begin this week with secularism, the separation of church and state, or in Turkey's case, the separation of mosque and state. In many modern democracies, this is not a novel concept, it simply is. In Turkey's case, however, the debate sparks up yet again. Last week, President Erdoğan and the president of the Directorate of Religious Affairs, Ali Erbaş, were pictured joined in prayer together during the opening ceremony of the new Supreme Court building in the nation's capital. This sparked outrage once again among secular Turks, as it was seen as a symbol of erosion of independence and supremacy of the judiciary, replaced by an increasingly theocratic and authoritarian rule. Now, public displays by heads of states is not a unique phenomenon. U.S. presidents famously sign off their addresses with "God bless America," and the U.K. Prime Minister appoints bishops to the Church of England. But, of course, nothing is independent of its context. It's no secret that AKP and Erdoğan represent a breed of politics that is increasingly more religious in Turkey. Which brings us to the Directorate of Religious Affairs, or Diyanet as Turks call it. Established in 1924, the Directorate's original intent was to exert state control over religion to prevent rise of radicalism in the mosques. Now, during the early brittle years of the Republic, of course. Now, in Turkey, all imams are government employees. Their salaries are paid for by the government. They get their sermons handed to them by the government. But now, since AKP's 20-year rule began, the Directorate has been a lot more vocal, a lot more front and center, and a lot more opinionated than usual. The president of the Directorate of Religious Affairs, Ali Erbaş, did not help quell the tensions this week when he doubled down during a speech stating that religion should play a greater role in politics, in justice, and in law.
A ceremony to mark the opening of a new Supreme Court building in Ankara caused controversy last week after a photo was published showing President Erdoğan, Chief Justice Mehmet Akarca, and President of Turkey's Directorate of Religious Affairs, Ali Erbaş, joined together in prayer. The image of the prayers was for many a visual confirmation of the increased influence of religion in Turkey's public sphere and the deteriorating independence and neutrality of the country's courts. The photo made rounds on social media, sparking debate on the role of religion in Turkish courts as well as secularism in Turkey, which has been enshrined in the constitution from the nation's founding. Originally envisaged as a mechanism for controlling the influence of Islam in the secular republic, the role of the Directorate of Religious Affairs has shifted drastically in the recent years, under the leadership of President Erdoğan, as it has been increasingly used for promoting Islam and giving it a more prominent role in Turkish society. As its influence has increased, so has its budget, growing over fourfold under President Erdoğan, making the Directorate of Religious Affairs one of the government's most well-funded ministries. The Directorate of Religious Affairs President, Ali Erbaş, a firm ally of the president, has long been a controversial figure. Later, Erbaş spoke at the Iman Hatip Congress at Ankara University, in which he fired back at his critics, saying, "There are those who demand that religion play no role at home, in business, in politics, justice, or law. There's this belief that there should be no faith on the streets, in the neighborhoods, and that it should stay between a person and God." He went on to say that this is a Western-centric understanding of religion. Erbaş has been a prominent and outspoken political figure, frequently weighing into matters that his predecessors would have shied away from, such as social media, workers' rights, and foreign policy. Erbaş is also controversial for his past comments on the rise of deism, atheism, and nihilism in Turkey's youth, blaming these changes on the spread of Western understanding of religion, responding to the rise of irreligion in Turkey.
Joining me now to comment, subject matter expert, investigative journalist Burcu Karakaş. Ms. Karakaş, thank you for joining us.
Hi, so happy to be here.
We're glad you're here. Now, I want to start off by asking you about the state of secularism in Turkey. Now, recently more than ever, we've seen the ruling party take aim at secularism, bringing religion more front and center. Now, why would you say that this is? Why are they making these moves, do you think?
Well, maybe first of all, it will be correct to say that this is not a new thing. I have, as you know, I have recently written a book on Diyanet, and if you have a look at their activities, especially in the last 10 years, you will see that actually the government has been trying to Islamize the country in some other perspectives, especially in the last 10 years. So, but I think it also has some other, so as you know, since the peace process has been ended now, it has been more than 5 to 6 years, and so the government now has to bring. They want to produce a more nationalist and Islamist discourse in order to bring the voters all together. So they have been playing this card for a while, but I think they will have they want Diyanet to be much more effective in the in coming years. So I really think that this is just the beginning, because they have no other choice. So they have to focus on this nationalist and Islamist discourse, just because they have actually left the other sections of the society. So they know that they cannot get their vote, so they have to play this role.
I see. And you were talking about a peace process. Can you expand on what peace process you mean exactly?
So as you know, there has been a ceasefire in Turkey between PKK and Turkish government. So, but starting from 2015, after the elections, that when HDP actually won the election, then we have seen that this peace process actually ended, and then Turkey entered a new era. And in this new era, actually, Islam plays an important role. So that's why we also see that now Diyanet is becoming much more active, and also Ali Erbaş, he thinks that it's totally normal for him to talk on secularism, and he can even say that we don't need it anymore. He doesn't put it in this way, but he means it. So of course, he doesn't have the power to say that by himself, but we can say that it's so obvious that Erdoğan actually gives him the courage. So that's why he thinks that he has to be much more influential in politics, but not only in politics, also in about the things about the youth, the women, children, and also like he thinks that they have to be influential over the society as well, not only the politics. And actually, this has been we can also say that since you take the peace process out of the game, you have to give the society something new. So I think that's why the government also wants to Islamize the society from this perspective as well. Because now they actually changed the game. The whole game changed after this peace process ended. And so now Islam plays a very important role in this new era.
I see. And really the question is, are these moves going to pay off? And is AKP making more religious moves to consolidate and galvanize its voter bloc? And do you think that this is a wise game, considering that there's also a chance that they could alienate a particular section of their voter bloc? As we know, AKP is really hanging by a thread at this time, according to the polls. What do you think? Is this a good political move?
I don't think it's about AKP anymore. Let's remember that now Turkey is under this one-man rule. So it's all about Erdoğan. And we know that the society is so much polarized, and this polarization is not going anywhere. It's going to be here. And I think, and we see that it is actually, it's just becoming much more powerful. So I don't really think they care about the voters anymore. But they have to sustain the system, and they have to stabilize it. And so I think the whole game is now about Erdoğan, and he wants to be the winner in this game. So, okay, I also don't think that they just care about if it's a wise game or not. Of course, as I said before, they have to they have to keep some segments of the society together. But I think we have to just keep in mind every time that this is one-man rule, and we are talking about Erdoğan's system. I don't know. Do you think that now we can talk about a party like the AKP as a party has been so much influential and powerful in the past, but right now we mostly talk about Erdoğan, and so he doesn't have any other choice but to win, right? So, and polarization it seems like it is the only way to keep the country going, I would say. And so in this game, he knows that Islamism and nationalism, these two things, he has to keep, and he has to, he has to use these things, two things combined in order to keep the system going. So I don't think it's about being if the game is wise or not. So it's all about Erdoğan. He's keeping the country. When I say, of course, stabilizing, he has to keep the system going in this way. So, and also, as you know, we have other issues. It's not only the political, but also economic as well. So you have to also draw attention to somewhere else. And as we have seen in the last week, well, actually, this secularism debate has shifted attention from many other issues to this. I am not saying that it is not important, or like we should be just turning a blind eye to what Ali Erbaş is saying. Of course not, because the government has a very open demand. They want to Islamize the society. They want to Islamize the country. And I think his verse has shown that this is not just too obvious. But at the same time, if you are talking about a game, yes, as they have been playing this migration game, and now I think they're also playing this Islamic card. So we are going to see that also, I think, in the near future.
I see. And perhaps a more pertinent question at this point would be, has the strategy been paying off? Now, we've seen that for the last 20 years, AKP has been promoting Islam more and more, trying to push people to be a little more conservative, a little more religious. And how effective do you think the strategy has been? Does it work? Do people become more religious through governmental push? What do you think?
Well, this is a very important question. I think this is something that actually every politician, or at least the academicians, have been they should be examining. So in my book, I actually just I give a picture of what Diyanet is doing, about youth, children, women, and other sections of the society. But of course, it doesn't give a picture about the impact, because studying impact, it's something else. So I am not an academician, but I have been just, writing down their activities and what they have been doing so far in the last 10 years. But if you are talking about the impact, there are some not let's say studies, but there are some polls showing that actually, as we know, the government, but especially Erdoğan, he wants a religious youth, right? So he has been saying that now for so many times, so we know that. But we can say that actually it's backfiring. So it's not working that much, because some polls show that young people, actually, they are distancing themselves from religion, and they are becoming non-believers. So, and actually, this is also at the same time a fact for young men and women who are going to Imam Hatip schools. So I have recently done video for DW Turkish, and I have talked to this young man who is a high school student, and his actually family is a very religious one. And he studied, actually, he was at the last year of school, and he's saying that he doesn't believe anymore. Or I talked to another guy, and he's saying that he became a non-believer just because he's so sick of the political Islam. That's exactly what he said. So we can say that, or at the same time, as you know, we know that women actually, some women are getting, they're just taking off their, the headscarves. And so from this perspective, we can say that what they are trying to do, they are trying to Islamize society, especially the children and the youth. But I think it's backfiring. It's not working that much. And they know this. So the reason that Diyanet is becoming much more active in public space is this. So the government knows that the number of the non-believers are actually increasing in Turkey. So they know this and they want to take some precautions, and they openly also say that it is not something good and we have to Islamize. And these young people, they should be, sincere Muslim people. So that's why they are putting so much effort into this. That's why they are organizing youth camps. And where they, trying to teach these young people that Islam is the best thing and they should be, following and Islamist life and things like this. Or that's why they are trying to, they are not trying to, but they do now organize this, religious education for children aged from 4 to 6. And so the whole point is that they know that society is distancing itself from Islam. And so the government wants to turn this trend, into opposite. So that's why they are putting so much effort. But again, going back to your question, I don't think they are getting the impact that they want. And just because they see this, then we see that they're increasing the budget of this institution, Diyanet. Why? Because it's like, okay, they see that it's not working. So their idea is that, okay, if it's not working, then maybe we are not doing enough. So we should be doing much more than that. So they're increasing the budget, which means that when the budget of the institution is increasing, it means that actually the employees that the religious employees actually increasing. So no, I don't think it has been that influential. So that's why they are trying to do their best, but still, but of course, it doesn't mean that the countries, whatever the government is trying to do to Islamize the country is not important. Of course, we shouldn't be underestimating that. And especially we know we have been seeing what's happening in Afghanistan. So we know the secularism especially is important that's one of the reasons why I wanted to write this book, especially important for fragile sections of society, women in the first place. So, of course, I'm not saying that they are not getting what they want. That's my opinion. But at the same time, I think the activities actually should be under focus, and we should be paying much more attention, especially to Ali Erbaş words and what the institution is doing.
I see. And I do believe that I was able to catch that excellent piece at DW that you did, and I do recommend it to our viewers. But before I digress, I want to move on to my final point, perhaps something that is on every secular Turk's mind and has been for the last 20 years. Of course, the big question is, do you foresee the possibility of Turkey transforming into a more theocratic state like we see in the Middle East as a final push when Erdoğan realizes that this strategy has not worked?
Well, I know that you have guests here for, until now, so many guests. And one thing that probably all of them has been saying that. So one thing about Turkey is that it is very unpredictable, right? So like in 2016, I remember this July, and nobody, we were having a hard time to believe that actually a coup attempt was happening, right? So of course, some people were foreseeing that, but still it was kind of a surprise, right? So I think Turkey is a very unpredictable country, but at the same time, I don't think that it can turn into a more religious country, because there are some factors. I mean, first of all, what I have been saying before, it is a very vibrant society, and there are many young people. The youth population is really high, and they have, especially in the next election, we know that they are going to be influential over the elections, right? So, and these young people, this new generation actually is so much different from other generations, and the government also knows that. And it's not only about Turkey, actually it's kind of same like for every other country. So since we have so many young people and they have a totally different world opinion, they have been, right now, it doesn't matter, like the socioeconomic status actually doesn't really matter, I would say. All of them has a smartphone, and they have been following what's going around in Europe or like in other countries, and they have the chances to compare what's happening abroad and here. So, and they are much more connected to the world. That's why they're also different from their parents, I would say. And okay, you may ask, like, why am I saying all of this? Because so they are actually experiencing this globalization, and of course they see the bad and the good. It's not always the good, but also at the same time. So, but they are much more connected to the world, and also religion is not something that you impose from top. I mean, of course, we know that there are examples all around the world, especially in the Middle East. But Turkey has a long history with the war, between religion and secularism, and actually the whole country is, I would say, constructed almost on this debate. So it's a very ongoing debate, but I don't see the possibilities. I mean, of course, the government is going to try to push hard, and they are going to try to do their best in order to Islamize the country, and, because they want society become much more religious. Because when a society is much more when it becomes the society that they want, then it will be, of course, much more easier to rule the country, right? And I think that's also one of the reasons. Of course, that's why they're trying to do it so hard. But I don't think it's gonna work, because Turkey has its own environment, and of course, it has so much common with, if you compare to other countries in the Middle East. But at the same time, it is so much different than them. So yes, they are going to play this Islamic card, but at the same time, I think it's going to backfire. And at least that's what I have been seeing, what I saw, actually, I would say, while I was writing my book, that yes, they are putting so much money, they are putting so much time, but they are not getting what they want. But this means that they are going to push harder. But I don't think they are going to get at least like it's not going to meet their expectations, because there's some obstacles to that. But at the same time, of course, it's not only about the youth, but we should see like the opposition is doing much more than that, So it's not going to work if you say that we actually don't appreciate what Ali Erbaş is saying. I mean, Diyanet is signing many protocols with Ministry of Education or Family or others. So they became like one of the most important partners from this perspective. And as a journalist, I would actually expect from the opposition to have a much more, louder voice in that. Like they should be criticizing that. Well, I don't see it, and I don't really. I have no idea why they are not being much more, louder in this topic. Because I think this is, of course, this is one of the most important topics when it comes to the politics. If you are going to talk about what the government is trying to do in public space or politics or to the society, Diyanet's role should be much more in the focus. And I think the opposition should be much more critical when it comes to that. But I don't see it. So, the opposition and also from the public, I think we should be seeing much more reactions to, on this debate. Otherwise, of course, things can get worse. But at the same time, I don't think Turkey, because there are like little chances for Turkey to be, closed society. I mean, we are, in the middle of this. This is a very cliche thing, but Europe and, East and West. So you cannot, close yourself to the others, or you cannot say that, okay, I'm not playing this game with others. I'm going to be all alone in this area, in the region. I mean, what are the chances? You cannot survive.
Of course.
So, yes, it is a very vibrant society, and I don't think it's going to work.
Of course. Burcu Karakaş, thank you for shedding light on the subject matter, and we will be sure to put your book down in the descriptions for folks at home who want to find out more about the subject matter.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Continuing on with politics, the Turkish-Kurdish conflict, better known in Turkey by its less palatable term, the Kurdish problem. The Kurds are an ethnic minority in Turkey, but a distinct one, accounting for between 15 to 20% of the population. The 20th century saw many conflicts between Turks and Kurds, some devolving into sectarian violence. Kurdish languages, culture, identity in Turkey were banned at some point. Turkish government even went as far as to deny the existence of Kurds as a whole. When AKP came to power 20 years ago, Erdoğan promised an end to the Kurdish problem, heralding a new age in ethnic relations. And for a while, things did change for the better. 2004 saw the first ever Kurdish language programming on state television. In 2009, TRT Kurdi, exclusively a Kurdish language state channel, was launched, though many Kurds consider it to be nothing more than a propaganda outlet. But the peace process was again cut short amidst a new spark in political violence. Now, with changing political winds, AKP allied with the Nationalist Movement Party, or MHP, a far-right ultra-nationalist party that is not entirely on board with the peace process. Considering that many accuse the AKP of jailing Kurdish politicians at the request of MHP, while MHP has negligible support in Turkey, barely cracking 10%, that's enough for AKP to stay in power. Now, the main opposition party, CHP, appears to have picked up on the winds of change and appears to be trying its hand at mending Turkish-Kurdish relations in order to unify a front against the ruling party by securing the Kurdish vote. A CHP party delegation paid a visit to the Prime Minister of Iraqi Kurdistan, which many consider to be a historic occasion.
A party delegation led by Oğuz Kaan Salıcı, the deputy chairman of Republican People's Party, or CHP, met with Mesrour Barzani, the Prime Minister of Kurdistan Regional Government in northern Iraq. Chief Foreign Policy Advisor of CHP and Istanbul Deputy of Grand National Assembly of Turkey, Ünal Çeviköz, Party Assembly Members Nevaf Bilek, Professor Dr. Mehmet Hasan Eken, and Enver Ömür were also in the delegation. Salıcı stated the following preceding the meeting: "We are talking about the Middle East Peace and Cooperation Organization. We, as a Republican People's Party, will do our best to make every constructive contribution to ensure that our channels of dialogue with our neighbors are kept open and that things will settle down in the Middle East." In his statement, Salıcı also emphasized that the purpose of the visit was to strengthen the relations between Turkey and KRI and to express the CHP's view on issues of common importance. The delegation also met with former KRG president and Kurdistan Democratic Party KDP leader Mesrour Barzani. Mehmet Kaya, president of Diyarbakır Province Chamber of Commerce, commented on CHP's meeting with the regional government.
It's a late visit but an important one. CHP is setting out to solve the Kurdish problem in Turkey. And we know that the Kurdish problem is no longer a Kurdish problem but has transformed into a Middle Eastern problem as a whole. Now, if you implement different policies in places like northern Syria and northern Iraq, that does not account for the Kurdish population, and then follow different policies in Turkey, it won't seem so believable that you intend to solve the Kurdish problem. Nobody would believe this. The public wouldn't believe it. Which is why you need a uniform Kurdish policy in places like Iraq and Syria. In doing so, of course, you have to communicate with the central governments of the nations as well, but you also have to communicate with the regional governments there. Now, if these steps are taken, we can call this an even more momentous meeting. However, if you are a party who has set out to solve this problem and intend to become the ruling majority in Turkey, you have to further develop these dialogues. They said that these meetings would continue. This is also important. But they can't do this with just an annual visit.
Now on to the coronavirus. Reportedly, 82% of the nation have gotten at least their first shots, and 63% are being reported as fully inoculated by the health ministry. The ministry is reporting 23,846 positive cases today out of 314,793 tests. 31,322 people are reported to have recovered from COVID. However, unfortunately, 257 people are being reported as deceased today. But those test numbers are bound to go up this week as the health ministry has announced new regulations requiring PCR tests for intercity travel on planes, buses, and trains. This comes, of course, at the heels of face-to-face education restarting in Turkey. This Monday, 18 million kids return to school once again. We spoke last week with the president of Turkish Medical Association, Dr. Şebnem Korur-Fincancı, who, while did not share the health minister's optimism, argued for the necessity of reopening schools and really to take the health minister's reports at a grain of salt. This week, however, we now see yet another strain of the dreaded coronavirus, the Mu variant, named so after the Greek letter Mu. It seems now that every other month a new strand of COVID is detected, which may not be too far from the truth, as RNA viruses are thought to mutate far quicker than DNA viruses. And of course, COVID is an RNA-type virus. It's not all doom and gloom this time, however, as Mu is reported as being less transmissible than the Delta variant, and thus far, vaccines are reported to have good effect against the strain.
As schools reopened on Monday across Turkey, cautious optimism was tempered by concerns over the first appearance of the new Mu coronavirus variant within the country. Following a meeting last week, health and education ministers detailed precautionary measures for school as face-to-face education begins again. The main provisions announced were a twice-weekly PCR testing requirement for unvaccinated teachers and mask mandates for all individuals on school grounds, in addition to investments in hygienic supplies, cleaning personnel, and the possibility of mixed face-to-face and online hybrid teaching for higher education. As schools began their second day of classes, Turkish Health Minister Fahrettin Koca announced that the country had recorded its first 2 cases of the new Mu variant. In his post on social media announcing the detection of the new variant, the health minister reported that Delta and Delta Plus variants currently make up 90% of active cases in Turkey. Mu, first detected in Colombia January 2021, has since been reported in 39 countries. Existing vaccines are believed to offer a strong protection against the new variant. Despite the ominous announcement of the new Mu variant at the beginning of the new school year, Monday saw Turkey's vaccination age limit lowered to 12, a change welcomed by many educators and parents. The vaccine was previously only available to the 15-plus age group and those above 12 with chronic health conditions. Monday also marked the beginning of stricter testing requirements for non-vaccinated individuals across Turkey. Starting Monday, a negative PCR test is required for intercity travel on planes, buses, and trains, as well as for entry to closed spaces such as schools, cinemas, theaters, and concerts. These requirements apply to those who have not yet been fully inoculated. In addition, Health Minister Fahrettin Koca also held a surprise conference yesterday where he announced that the Turkish vaccine, currently called Turkovac, is now sufficiently matured where emergency authorization will be requested.
That's it for us in This Week in Turkey. I have been Murat, Tursan, and thank you for joining us.
Türkiye'nin sivil, bağımsız, özgür ve çoğulcu bir medya ortamına ihtiyacı var. Medyascope 20 Ağustos 2015'te bu ihtiyacı karşılamak üzere yola çıktı. Ama yolumuz uzun. Bu yolculukta bize Patreon veya YouTube'un katıl butonu üzerinden katkıda bulunabilirsiniz. Destek verin, sizinle güçlenelim.